You guys good in the back? Cameras? Good?
Yeah.
All right. Fire away, guys.
How's it feel to be back?
It feels amazing. Just, going through the tunnels, seeing the city, seeing that beautiful water, it feels amazing to be back for sure.
Growing up, were you playing football in the backyard thinking you wanted to be a Steeler, pretending you were a Steeler, taking through kind of your childhood growing up into now?
Yeah, just growing up, started football at 4 or 5 years old and, going around the house, throwing footballs around, mom taking it away from me. Now I'm using socks or water bottles, acting like, I'm playing football, things like that. But never thought I would be a Steeler, which is crazy. But now that I'm here, I'm just so blessed and, humbled to be here. And, I just get chills, just knowing that I'm be a Pittsburgh Steeler, and I'm from Pittsburgh. So.
Jaquan, you've been described as Chris Carter, Pittsburgh Post Gazette. You've been described as a Swiss Army knife. Last year you played, not directly even, but close to even, box and free. What do you feel like you're most excited to play the Steelers defense, with the way that they're going to use you at safety?
Yeah, I just feel excited to just be, used, like you said, like a Swiss Army knife, playing free, playing strong, playing that dime, backer or whatever, just being moved around to showcase what I could do and to help the team win and, elevate my teammates and, elevate the defense. So just whatever I could do to help the team win and, showcase what I could do, I'm willing to do it.
Well, it looked like the Bears were a team on the ascent, good run in the playoffs. What are you getting into here?
I feel like it's going to be the same thing. They just won a divisional title last year. Got a lot of great pieces, around, us, around me. I feel like they had a lot of great players on defense already. You got TJ, you got Jalen, you got Joey, Patrick Queen, Cam Hayward, Highsmith, and, a lot of young guys too. And they're building on the offense. So I feel like it's a great opportunity, to make a deep playoff run again.
Have you had a story about you and Joey back at Penn State? Anything good? Illustrate your
I had to, get Joey, together. I'll say that. He had to mature, but which he did, and that's one of my favorite teammates, one of my guys, and to see him where he came from at Penn State to now, it's amazing, and he's gonna be a great player in this league for sure.
What was he doing? Why did he need to mature?
I think he was just his ego, his ego when he came in. I think he was like 4 or 5 star. And, I just had to, just get him right into the right path, so football-wise.
How'd you manage that?
Say it again?
How did you manage to do that?
Well, I was a captain, I was a leader, and, I wanted to win a championship so bad. And, I felt like it was my job to get the DBs, the group, the defense together. And that takes hard work. That takes, work ethic, and that's an everyday thing. That's consistency. And it's not just a one-day thing, or it's not just, I'm going to show up and just give my talent. And, for him, he wanted to be great, and I wanted to push him, and I seen what he had in him. But really in all my teammates, that's what I see. I see greatness within them, and I'm the #1 fan. So, that was, he's from Pittsburgh, and, he was a top recruit. But, Coach Terry brought us in, to win championships. So, didn't want him to slack, and obviously, knew his dad, things like that, and we came in together, so, you just got to push your teammates.
When you officially signed, just how do you put into words what do you think it's going to be like when you walk through that tunnel, you take the field in your hometown for the first time wearing that jersey?
Yeah, when I was thinking about that, I'm just like, man, seeing the terrible towel, waving around, hearing that Renegade song, I'm just like, man, it's going to be so fun playing in front of the fans and turn them up. That's all I just want to do, just, that energy, that passion, this city has, around the football, team and things like that. It's like no other. Like I said, before walking in here, while I was in Chicago, there was a lot of Pittsburgh fans in that stadium too. So they travel well, and I can't wait to play in front of them. So it's gonna be amazing.
Jaquan, as a follow-up to that, have you been to Latrobe since you're from here?
No, I've been to Latrobe one time in high school. We played them, and I had maybe 2-3 touchdowns. We beat them bad.
But never at the Steelers camp at the
No,
Latrobe.
I've never been to a Steelers camp at Latrobe. No.
Was Mike Fable playing for Latrobe then?
Yeah.
other pushing Joey.
Mm-hmm.
Do you look forward in turn to having the opportunity to work with Ramsey and Elliott, and what do you
Yeah.
want to learn from them?
Yeah, I look forward to playing with those players. Obviously, I seen them from afar, and I seen Jalen, play corner at a high level, and just trying to get to learn how he's been consistent for so many years. Playing at a high level, staying healthy, that's huge. And being able to move around. He plays corner, he plays nickel, he plays safety. So just getting any information I can get from him, and Deshaun too. Any information I can get from him also. I always want to learn, from any player, and there's always room to grow. So.
Jaquan, you talked about Joey coming into Penn State as a 5-star with a big ego. You kind of had the opposite experience, right? You go to Lackawanna.
Mm-hmm.
How did you keep your self-confidence and not let that setback define you and come out the other side the way you did?
I always just believed in myself. I just needed an opportunity, to showcase my talents. And Coach Duda, helped me a lot, become a better, person, a better student, a better player. And when I went to Penn State, I just, focused on, just getting better every single day, try to, know the playbook like the back of my hand, know what the D-line's doing, the linebackers, the corners, the safeties, the nickels, just know the playbook and things like that. And, I just always just focus on myself and always just focus on, progressing.
What have the last few days been like for you? Where were you when you found out about the deal? Who'd you call?
Yeah, the last few days, it's honestly been crazy. My phone's been blowing up to the point my phone was on like 90% and it died. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's how many like calls and texts I was getting. And the first person I called was my mom. Like, I'm about to be a Steeler. She's like, baby, are you sure? I'm like, yes, I'm about to be a Steeler. So she's like, oh my God, this is so exciting. So and then I texted the family group chat. I'm like, I'm a Steeler, and everybody was going crazy and things like that. So it was amazing.
Where were you when you found out?
I was in California. I was training at Westlake Village at Proactive. And to be honest, Joey was kind of on a phone call too a little bit. He was on FaceTime because he was blowing up like my agent and things like that, and blowing me up like, what are you gonna do? I'm like, bro, I'm probably gonna be a Steeler. And once it was official, I was like, I'm a Steeler, baby. So I was turned. So it was amazing for sure.
Did you think the Steelers were an option when free agency first started?
Yeah, that's why. To be honest, that's what I told my agent. A couple teams, but the Pittsburgh was one of them. I wanted to come back and play here. And, obviously the tradition, they have here, I seen it from afar, and I had, a lot of teammates, come back here and play here, and, they say it's amazing. And I always knew that. So I was just, definitely a destination I wanted to be.
Who was your favorite Steeler growing up?
Favorite? Just period, offense, defense, or just?
What do you got? You can pick two.
All right, I'll say Antonio Brown, and I'll say Troy Polamalu.
Does that make you a strong safety then?
No, I can't just diagnose myself as a strong safety.
Well, what position are you? Are you just both? Or?
I just classify me as a defensive back I could play anywhere on the field.
Well, can you talk about that? When I talk to like guys running out NFL, like Graham Catherine, the former Titans GM, he talks about the importance of when you're a safety in today's NFL, you have to be flexible because free and strong is becoming like positionless basketball at this point.
Yep.
How do you see that developing, and what things have you done that have you trained to make yourself that diverse in skill sets?
Things that I have done, I would say, would just be just making sure that I can play in the post and play in the box, but also being able to play in like I'll say field boundary. If you really think about it, safeties are now playing Will, Star. You see that from Derwin James, Cal, Hamilton, the young safety in Seattle, and I can name plenty of other players that you see it from. And you just have to be versatile, but you have to be willing to know the playbook and know everything, and that's what comes with it. So just working on, because everybody's gonna want to play man if you think about it. When you blitz, when you run cover 0, when you run cover 1, or when you don't have no help in the middle, you just gonna have to learn how to play man. So just up in my game in that category, and obviously in the middle of the field, in zone and things like that. So just being able to do it all.
You talked about at Penn State, that was, something you need to do as a leader to help guys. Was that something that you were encouraged by Coach Terry, like way back in college, so that's sort of like an asset that's always been in your favor coming into the NFL? Yeah,
I just wanted to win so bad. So I feel like everybody has to be on the same page. Like, when you win championships, it's really player-led, if you think about it. You ask any player who won a championship, they say the players led it. And that's what I wanted to do at Penn State. I wanted to lead, by example. And that's what my work ethic, and that was what, maybe I was vocal, maybe I might get in your face, maybe I, just depending on the player, because I knew my teammates. So maybe I might have to get on his face, or maybe I have to pull him aside or things like that. But it's always out of love, and it's always, that I want to win bad. So that's all I wanted to do. I just wanted to win and, up with my teammates, and they're thankful, for me for doing that. And I still get texts from this day from Penn Staters, from the Bears, from whatever teammate I had, they always thank me. So it comes a long way.
Even though after only 4 years in the league so far, new team, new coaches, you're going to be able to kind of adopt that leadership personality in that locker room
Yeah.
this season?
Yeah, I think. Well, I know I can. It's just the type of player I am. I always want to show it, by my work ethic, and always want to show it like just daily. And I feel like I'm a great person to watch, and great person to listen to.
Can you talk about? Sorry.
Brian Batko from the Post-Gazette, Jaquan. I know a couple years ago you missed a lot of time. And how good did it feel to just prove that you can still be that guy, staying on the field last season, that trash-talking, hard-hitting guy, and that you can stay healthy? And how scary was that, I guess, a couple years ago at that point in your career?
It was amazing to play a full season. Obviously, I wanted to do more for them, wanted to be moved around, wanted to make more plays and things like that. But did everything I could within the defense, within the scheme, and to be able to come back from that, because it was a tough injury. But like I said before, I could have came back a lot more earlier, but the season didn't go how we expected. And to be honest, I just want to take care of my long-term health and make sure I was able to play this upcoming season. So and to get over that, it was amazing. To get back to where I was and who I was, it was even better. But I feel like this year is going to be a lot better because I had no setbacks, and really my first year playing the whole year, so it's going to be fun.
Is there a mindset that comes with a one-year deal?
Yeah, just betting on myself like I always have. When I was in junior college, when I was in high school, when I had 0 offers, and plus, they let me come to Pittsburgh Steelers. So it's my hometown, so it's going to be amazing playing here. Got a chip on my shoulder already. I'm already motivated, but I just told myself, whoever gets me is going to get the best version of me. And I just can't wait to, showcase what I could do.
Is there a little bit more comfortability with playing for a fellow Yinzer coach?
Yeah, I'll say so. I wanted to play for him when he coached at the Cowboys, and he had a lot of some of the similar staff there still that he brought over here with the Steelers. So we had a good relationship. It was funny when I FaceTimed them. Well, when we talked on the phone, he had said something about my father. He's like, yeah, and I still remember your dad from at Penn State. I was like, that was hilarious because they had a great conversation, and you just tell how great a person my father is, and how he got that effect that a head coach still remembers him. You know what I mean? Because some fathers could get in the way of their son's journey. So I feel like that was big.
Many of these coaches remember your grandfather.
I didn't get that one yet. But
John Brisker, the aviator.
Yeah, I didn't get that one yet. Not yet.
You talked about
that
Terry
Rams
Smith.
playoff game last year show the versatility and how you can play?
Yeah, I'll say that. But I could say I could do a lot more than what I did at the Rams. I think that was just an opportunity that just came to me. Just me being around the ball, coach calling great calls and things like that. But I feel like I could do a lot more than what you guys seen, and I can't wait to showcase that. That's what I'm waiting on. For me to be used a lot more.
You talked about Terry Smith. Can you talk about just your relationship, how he helped you as a player in college, and then maybe what it was like just seeing him get his interim head coaching chance this past year?
Yeah, it was amazing. I was watching it from far, texting him, and honestly, I didn't want to bother him because I know everybody was, texting him and saying a lot of things, but, we're so close, and, to see him, have success, and it's tough. You think about it, coach gets fired, interim head coach comes in, and, guys still have to look at, him as a leader. They still have to go out there and win and, dial in. And at the same time, you're getting criticism from fans, negativity from, everybody around. So, for him to keep those guys composed and, focused and, go on a 4 or 5 game win streak and win a ball game is huge. And, Coach Terry, I knew he was going to be ready for that, that position, that spotlight. He was the head coach at Gateway, but the way he treats his players, the way he goes about, his business and things like that, it's amazing. And you could just tell. And, you can't cheat the game. It's always going to, reward you. And he got rewarded.
What was the biggest thing he did for you that you remember, just development-wise, either on the field or off the field?
For me, I would just say, just be where my feet is. When you come into the building, leave everything that, any problem or anything. It's all about football when you come into the building. And just learning that from him and learning, just really just really how to be a better person, a better man. It was not always about football with him, but football-wise, when you come into the building, just, keep the main thing, be where your feet are, and just be dominant.
Did you go to many Steeler games at Heinz Field growing up?
I never went to an NFL game until, like, the year I got drafted. It was like the San Fran versus the Rams. I really couldn't afford to go to any games, to be honest. And, watch everything from the TV. And the only thing I really did, like, Steeler-wise, was go to, like, Ben Roethlisberger camp, won a couple championships there at quarterback with the Mike Tomlin's camp. Mike Tomlin was a mentor for me, too. So, that was the only things I couldn't afford to go to a Pittsburgh game. But, look, always wanted somebody like that to come around because I never really had, like, a role model like that. Obviously my brothers, but NFL player, So one of the times, I seen Antonio, Brown training here, and I was working with Dwayne Brown. And, like, I seen, like, maybe, like, 2 fans, like, go up to his car. I'm like, that's Antonio Brown. I ran up there, got a video, and he took my phone, and he was, like, doing with, cheesing and things like that. I'm like, man, that was, like, a surreal moment, but that was, like, the only closest thing I got.
So will the first Steelers game that you see inside the stadium be one that you're playing in then?
Yes. Because, that is crazy, but if you think about it, I could have had an opportunity to play here, I think my high school year, but I couldn't play. I had got suspended, but I had the opportunity to, play a game, and I never got to play Heinz Field here. So it's all good.
So is Minio's the best pizza in Pittsburgh?
Yes.
Good. Do you pick a number yet, Jaquan?
Yes, I have number 3.
Thank you.
Yep.
Has Minio's reached out to you?
Yes. Yep. They added me on IG too. So, So we're all good. We're all good over there.
How do you feel like that your skill set's going to benefit the Steelers' defense?
Say it again.
How do you feel like your skill set is going to benefit the Steelers' defense?
I feel like it's going to benefit a lot. We got a lot of DBs, a lot of great DBs that they brought in that were already here. And, being under the DC, I feel like, he's going to utilize, my skill set within the scheme. And it's going to be amazing to see. I feel like I'm actually going to be able to showcase, what I could do, within, the scheme and within this defense. And, I just can't wait to, show what I could do.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Yes.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. You guys have a great day.
You too.